Wow, there's so much to see and do and enjoy. And you know, a lot of it runs on batteries, like my camera. But a whole town running on batteries? That's our story today. We're on the footbridge for those who haven't noticed, but there's trails, there's frisbee golf, of course the Pine River, you can canoe or kayak, lots of things to do here. And we're going to find out about something very innovative that's happened in BOAZ, Wisconsin, just down the road. BOAZ has become the first Wisconsin battery-operated town. We'll hear from Nate Sievers from Alliant Energy Corporation.
We can actually talk about the theme, RAREA powers up. Well, how are we going to power up? I heard about this some time ago, that this was happening 9 miles down the road in BOAZ, Wisconsin. But over the past maybe 6 months or so, there's been a lot of press and a lot of news coverage on this. So I thought this has to be a program that we have to do. Some of you may know something about this. Others of you may not even know this has been happening. But BOAZ is making history in more ways than one. They're making history. Our primary guest speaker here today is Nate Sievers. Nate is a manager of customer operations for Spring Green and Portage District and is headquartered in Spring Green. And even with my faulty computer, I can't tell you how much I have been watching the weather for the past week, because if there's a weather issue, Nate wouldn't be here. He would be out in the field doing his job. So after all, customers aren't too kind when their power goes out, I'm sure. But he seems like a jovial kind of guy to take it. So Nate tells me that he started working at Alliant Energy in 2008 and has been part of both the generation and energy delivery part of the business. So he has been a part of reducing the power and get it directly to the customers of Alliant Energy. Now, if you have questions for Nate, kind of write them down or mentally remember them. Because before Nate might take any questions, we also are going to get a couple of words from our other special guest dealing with this issue, and that is Gene Nix. Gene is the BOAZ Village President. So I asked Gene to come and say, what does it feel like to be a village president where you're making history? Because as Nate told me, what you're about to hear about is the first of its kind in all of the region of Alliant Energy. So, and no offense to Gene when I say this, but I said to Nate when I invited him, I said, the biggest question I want you to answer is, why did you choose BOAZ of all places? No offense, Gene. But I am just curious, out of all the locations that they could have chosen, they chose BOAZ. So it's right in our backyard. So ladies and gentlemen, I would like to give you a round of applause for Nate Sievers.
Thanks, Paul. So I was getting my my coach's voice ready in case we didn't have this microphone here. So everyone always refers to me as Coach Nate, so thankfully you don't have to deal with that today. So very happy to be here. Nice to talk with everyone today. So my background, Paul mentioned it really well, so I've been with Alliant Energy since 2008. Before that, I was at UW-Platteville, so I went to school for environmental engineering and reclamation. So I was on the environmental side and I ended up working in a power plant. So I was trying to get out in the woods and for some reason I went to industry. But I'll talk to you a little bit about the generation side and the energy delivery. It's really two different kind of companies within Alliant Energy. Energy delivery, I think everyone's really familiar with energy delivery. You see the line techs out there, you see the linemen, you see the gas techs. They're the ones that are providing the energy to your homes. So all the power lines out there for our distribution system. The other side of the business would be the generation. So when I started my career, I was at Nelson, Dewey, and Casco at the original power plant down there. I was the environmental specialist, and I did all the permitting for them, and a couple of special projects with biomass then too. But we were the ones that produced the power then to give to energy delivery to deliver it to your homes. So I've been on both sides of the business here. So if my mouse works, hey, there we go. So we always started to talk at Alliant Energy off of a safety share. And Paul mentioned that if it was raining, I might not be here. So I was going to talk a little bit about the weather. I know the last couple of days we've had a lot of changing conditions. Yesterday was kind of a challenging day for us in the Columbia County area where we had a lot of severe thunderstorms that rolled through Richland County, Sauk County, and Columbia County. We ended up getting 2 inches of hail on the road. It looked just like winter outside. It was just crazy. And unfortunately, I was out in the middle of it the entire time, so I felt all the hail that was coming down too. But I think this time of year is just knowing there's a lot of changing weather conditions out there, right? So, especially with the river coming up too, that's something that's always on my mind. We're always looking at that. But we went from a burn ban that you couldn't do anything all the way to being completely wet and flooding. So it's just kind of crazy in the spring, so conditions are always changing. So, but does anyone else have a safety share out in the audience at all? Don't want to put you on the spot. We can just keep on working though. All right, I'll keep working. All right, so our agenda for today is I'm going to talk a little bit about what Alliant Energy is doing, how our generation portfolio is changing from what it used to be, where I started with the company in the coal plants, to where we are now with Lone Rock, so the Bear Creek Solar Project, and then with our battery system in BOAZ. So we'll talk a little bit about battery energy storage, and then I'll give you an update on the BOAZ project then. So we're changing our vision for Alliant Energy now. In the past, we were predominantly coal was our main energy source. Things are starting to change. By 2030, we're achieving a 50% reduction in CO2 emissions. From 2005 levels, that's actually increased. We were at 40% was our original goal, and that would increase that to 50%. So things are changing very, very rapidly, I'd say, in the last 5 years. By 2040, our goal is to eliminate all coal from our generation fleet. So 10 years faster than our previous target. We're shooting for 2050, of course. That's what the governor has sent out to all the utilities in the state, is we wanted to go completely renewable, zero emissions from coal by 2050, and we moved that to 2040 now. And then by 2050, we're meeting an aspirational goal of net zero for our CO2 emissions for our fleet. So our clean energy blueprint really is changing right now. So we created a roadmap with all these new changes in generation and producing power of where we want our company to get to. So we're making some smart investments. Part of that would be BOAZ, and then Lone Rock with our Bear Creek solar facility. We're trying to really create some new jobs in areas. The traditional model for generating power used to be one big power plant. We called it a hub and spoke system, where it was one central location that generated power, and then there was a bunch of lines that came out of that. Things are changing a little bit, so now our power distribution is a little bit more robust and distributed. So with more smaller solar projects compared to one large power plant, it's making it more reliable than two, because if one power plant goes out, it doesn't mean the entire grid goes down then. So totally changing how we look at generation from the past to now in the future. So we're working on our path to sustain the environment, or the economic and environmental health of our communities that we serve then too. So really looking at that reducing emissions portion. So this is a really interesting slide. So this kind of shows our makeup within Alliant of how we've changed over time. So in 2005, you can see that coal was 44% of our production for generation. And you can see by 2021, that's already dropped to 23%. So it's a significant change from our standpoint for the company. And you can see at the top in 2005, renewables used to be 5%. That number is changing very, very rapidly and making up more and more of our entire fleet then. So we're at 34 in 2021, and then gas is at 42%. And then you can see what we're anticipating for 2030. Renewables will be 54% of our generating fleet. The gas component, everyone asks me about the gas component. Why is there so much gas out there? And we'll kind of get into how the renewables interact. The issue we run into with renewables is it is not always, the wind's not always blowing and the sun's not always shining. So we have these peaks and valleys in our grid. So the gas plants, what that allows us to do is the gas plants can ramp up very, very quickly to meet that demand. So when the renewables come down, the gas plant can meet that demand for load quicker than any coal plant could or nuclear plant. They can ramp up megawatts much, much quicker. So they're usually together with renewables along with batteries, and we'll talk about batteries a little later then too. So we have a new target of 1,100 megawatts of solar energy within our footprint within WPL, the Wisconsin part of our utility. So a lot of projects are online. You can see the ones in blue are currently in service. So we have 250 megawatts in service currently, and then all the ones in the green are the proposed ones that will be coming online in the next few years. The one right here, Richland County, would be the Lone Rock Bear Creek project. We'll talk about that a little bit later, and then our Wood County up north and then two. So we've got several projects that will be coming on. The next one that you'll see will be the Grant County, and that's down between Lancaster and Potosi. That's going to be a pretty large project. That's a 200 megawatt project. So Bear Creek is in the town of Buena Vista in Lone Rock. So it spans 450 acres. So it's roughly, for solar, it's about 10 acres per megawatt of power for solar. So it kind of gives you a good standpoint. So it's a 50 megawatt solar project. That equates out to about 13,000 homes that can power. So that's going to be really beneficial for this area because anytime you have a generator in your neck of the woods, that helps increase your voltage and maintain that voltage. So you're not going to have line constraints on that. So back to that reliability component again too. So it was completed and placed into service last year. So it's been producing power for over a year now. We haven't really had any issue. Nice thing with solar, there's no sound, there's no humming, there's no buzzing. It's just like standing out in the middle of a peaceful field. It really is nice. It's a huge change for me from coming from an industrial coal plant where it's always hearing protection, you're always at your safety gear on, very loud environment. So quite a change. Oh, there's the weather I was waiting for. All right, so that's kind of our clean energy blueprint we have for the company going forward. So now we can talk a little bit more about the projects that are local here. So battery storage. Batteries are kind of unique. Batteries really don't produce power in a generating capacity. Batteries help us get power that was maybe produced by a solar project or a windmill. Because we talked about the wind doesn't always blow, the sun doesn't always shine. The batteries are a bridge to get that power that's produced to when we need the power. So it's really just moving the power from when it was produced to when we really need it for the load. So you can kind of see the schematic over here, the animation. You have the three generators putting into the power into the battery. The battery then on the off hours is producing the power that we need onto the grid then. So it's a unique system. It used to always be, we produce as much power as demand needed. We were always a just-in-time producer, so this is a new concept for the utility business then too. So the benefits of batteries, energy storage solutions improve reliability and help meet better customer needs. And we kind of talked about, we put these in strategic locations so that we can avoid expenses, infrastructural upgrades, large power plants to make the grid more robust, and it enables the development of more sustainable renewable energy for us then too. So we can capture that energy So when the wind is blowing, we can capture that energy and then use it at a usable time that everyone needs that power. Because unfortunately, when we really need to ramp up power, it's usually in the middle of January, February, and it's usually dark. So we need to be able to move that power from when it's being produced during the daylight hours so that we can meet that demand. So, BOAZ. Well, we'll talk about all of them. So, I'm fortunate that my 2 locations have 2 of the batteries. I don't know how I got that, but I did. So both Portage and BOAZ have battery solutions. So I've got a 5 megawatt in Portage. So that has 10 megawatt hours. So you see 2 different ratings there. You see MW, which would be megawatts, and on the backside is MWH, so that would be megawatt hours. So how long can that battery produce that power? So in Portage, I have a 2-hour window that I can produce power. Now at the bottom on BOAZ, you can see 400 kilowatts. So there's 1,000 kilowatts in a megawatt. So BOAZ has 8-hour capacity. So that's a pretty nice long duration. We'll get into a little bit why BOAZ was chosen in the first place, and this kind of feeds into it then too. So we also have a couple other projects in Iowa right now, Wellman, Marshalltown, Decorah, Cedar Rapids. And then we have a unique one in Sauk City, back in Wisconsin, that's working with the Wisconsin DNR. They have a station up on top of the Baraboo Bluffs that had 1 line that was feeding it, and it wasn't economical to build that line back again, so we created a solar battery for them to use at their facility. So we've got the Cedar Rapids battery adjacent to the Deer Run substation. So all of our batteries are connected to a substation. BOAZ has a kind of a mini substation with it. So we're using that for dispatchable power then too. So when we start to lose power in the area, we can dispatch that battery to kind of help with our load then too. And then just to store it when we need the power, right? So BOAZ is going to be a little bit different. We'll talk a little bit more about that. We talked about Grant County already. 100 megawatt system. These are some more proposed battery projects that we have. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to get a battery storage solution with a solar facility or a windmill area. So that way we can capture that energy that we might not be needing to use at the time and then move it to the location when we need it. So we've got several that are proposed but haven't been built yet. So you got Grant County, Wood County, and Edgewater, which means Sheboygan then. So you're going to see how this changes over time. We're going to be going more towards the battery environment over time. Finally to the local. So what's a microgrid? So essentially it's small scale. It's on its own island, so it's not connected to the grid anymore. So BOAZ is unique because it's the only battery project that we have that can island. So the big issue that BOAZ had in the past was reliability, and Gene can attest to this. So BOAZ is unique because BOAZ is on a radial line. So there's only 1 line that goes into the village, and that comes all the way from Blue River. So a long, long duration. So the issue we're having, and I think everyone knows the topography and the amount of trees that are between Blue River and BOAZ, a lot of reliability issues, and they're by themselves. They're at the end of the line. Typically, when we build lines, it's almost like a water system here in town. We try to make it a loop system, so that we have 1 line going in, we have another line going in. So if 1 line goes down, we can switch to the other line. So we always have that reliability. We didn't have that ability with BOAZ, and so that's why, to answer your question, Paul, why BOAZ was chosen is BOAZ is at the end of the line, very difficult terrain and a lot of reliability issues. So we wanted to get a solution that instead of building another line into BOAZ, let's look at a microgrid system with batteries. So if we lose power on the main line, it can instantly switch over to the battery power and continue to run BOAZ without any blip in time. So we started with a list of 17 potential locations, went through a lot of the criteria. BOAZ met all of them, ranked those locations, and then we had to size everything, so we had to look at the entire load of the village then too. So we sized the battery adequately. So we looked at all the load that was in the village, We looked at how long do we need to have a duration. So the great thing is now that if we did have an outage on that line, that radio line that goes into BOAZ, we've got 8 hours of there being power. Plenty of time for us to get that line back up and rolling again then too. So it's all about reliability for BOAZ. That's what it looks like. So right there would be the site. There isn't a whole lot to it. The battery is actually the big white block off to your left-hand side there, or my left. There isn't much there. If you go into the site right now, you might hear a little humming, and that's about it. It's always charging itself. It's at full capacity at all times. Then we've got a couple inverters, which would be the gray boxes, and then we've got some transformers, which are the green boxes there. So everything is DC when it's battery. We have to convert that with an inverter over to AC power. And the AC power then needs to be stepped up from 480 up to 7200 or 14.4. Because that's what our distribution lines typically run at 7200 volts. So there isn't a lot to a microgrid. Everyone thinks it's a really in-depth process, but there's not that many components to it. So Gene can attest to the media coverage on this one too. Thankfully, I haven't had to be the one that does this, so I don't want to speak on camera a whole lot. But it's been a lot of news in the area. It's made a lot of news at the Madison stations because it is unique. It's the only one in our area within Line Energy, which we cover Iowa and Wisconsin, that has that islanding capability. So it's really a cool project in my opinion. So, kind of in summary, the main reason why BOAZ, reliability, making sure people have power when they need the power. And that might be a solution for a lot of other small locations throughout our service territory and throughout other utility service territories. Instead of building another line that's going to get hit by a tree, that could get hit by a car, maybe we need to look at a different solution besides just running power lines to it. So, I think with that, I did pretty good on my time. I'm open to questions, but actually I think Gene wants to talk now.
We got to have Gene talk first. So I'll bring the mic to Gene.
Because he can't see if I'm standing up. Good morning, everybody. When they first contacted me about BOAZ being a microgrid, and the first, I think the questions they asked, they need to store all their stuff. I says, okay, I'm going to make you a deal. BOAZ Park needs spools for tables. You can store your stuff in my park, I get your spools. So I like bartering with people, yes. And so I got plenty, and I got poles too. I do believe in green energy. If you watch Channel 27, you've probably seen blurbs of solar panels out there. That's my farm. So we are already taking a step for green energy. So our farm pretty much runs during the day just off solar panels, which I find out now, if we go out of energy and they turn on the microgrid, during that 8 hours, if we're generating energy, that's going into those batteries. So I think I need to charge them. Doesn't that sound like a fair deal?
I'll work on that.
Yeah. I've been working on it too. But anyway, in the village of BOAZ, yeah, we're very small. We have 129 people in our village. And one of the things that happens a lot, we have a lot of elderly people. And when our power goes out, their heat goes out. Their pipes will freeze. This way gives them more assurance that I'm not going to freeze. Because there was one time we were taking people to the township of Dayton because it was cold. It's during the winter time. It never seems like summertime the power goes out. It's always winter. So that really helps there. Another thing that happens too in the village, BOAZ, we have our own sewer system. And they're pumps. Every time that power goes out and turns back on, there's a hard stop and a hard start up again. That hurts those pumps. It costs the village money. So that's one thing now, when that power goes out, there won't be that change there with those pumps anymore. Because trust me, that is no fun pulling those pumps. I've got my experience this last couple weeks pulling pumps. It's not pretty. So that alone for a pump is about $5,000 to replace. So you can figure what this has helped the village a lot that way. I haven't noticed any power outages since this happened. If they did the testing, I don't know if they shut it down and back up right away. Once I thought they did.
Once they did.
Once.
Yep.
You didn't even notice it. That's how fluid that is. Because I worked for Rockwell for 31 years, and I know about the battery concept and the inverters and the switch over and that, and this is working smooth. I mean, it's the way of the future. We have to get away from gas, coal. We have to generate our own, our solar, our wind, our own energy that we have around. Now, I shouldn't say this, battery operated cars right now, I kind of still like my gas one, but they're so quiet. And so that is what this is meant to BOAZ. It is an assurance of that we're always never going to be out of power.
Thank you very much. Now, any questions for either Nate or Jean?
I have one. Where are those batteries manufactured? They're not manufactured in China, are they?
I believe not. I have to look at it. I believe they're German batteries. So don't quote me on that one though. I've got to look back at
Can
what's
the USA
manufactured.
produce batteries like that? I mean, I know the battery technology has changed a lot.
It has. It has.
So-
And I mean, you look at companies like Tesla. They're created a whole different plant just for producing their own batteries now.
Yeah.
So I think it's there. You're going to see this industry continue to grow. Right now, we kind of started this in the infancy, right? Which is, I would like to say it's a little unique for Lion Energy. Usually we like to see how things play out before we really dive into it.
Yeah.
So kudos to the company for taking a little risk on here and trying to do what's right and try out a new solution. So I think you're going to see it develop more in the U.S. because I know that's a big concern, especially with the world the way it is right now. But I know that Tesla is full out trying to produce more power, more batteries at their new location in the southwest part of the U.S. So hopefully we'll get more in the future. Yeah, go ahead.
I have two questions, if I can remember both.
Okay.
One is, what happens to the batteries? How long do they last? And what do you do about, what happens if you need to throw them out? And how dangerous is it? Because, we're supposed to take our little batteries places and do all that. And the other question is,
Sure.
having these places all over, and I'm really not that paranoid, but the security, does that make for better security for the grid? That someone couldn't harm the grid?
So I can answer the first one. You might have to remind me on the second one. So on the first one, so the batteries are lithium iron phosphate batteries. So we used to have, everyone started out with lithium ion. That's why you have to take the ends of your lithium ion batteries and they have to go into a certain disposal in, right, when we get rid of them. They have a lot of potential of sparking and having that thermal runaway. So the iron phosphate type batteries, we've got a lot better luck with not having that thermal runaway potential. So we're hoping that the longevity on those is going to be between 15 and 30 years. So depending upon what type of battery, I have to organize all of them since it's a new technology. The newer ones, getting longer years out of right now. So in any case, the nice thing about, I can probably go back on this, or on my computer, see if I can get back that picture again. So right here you can see different black lines right there. Each one is a cell. So we can have, instead of replacing the entire system, you can replace each cell individually if one would fail. So the goal would be for us to recycle those batteries in when we get done, work with our distributors to recycle each cell. So it's kind of a plug and play then too. So we can send the battery off for recycle, put a new one in and continue to use that service then too. So much better than shutting the entire plant down, having to retool everything, put all brand new batteries in. So that's gonna help the longevity of the system then as well. Remind me on the second part of the question though.
The second one was, there's a lot of fear that something can happen
Oh,
security-wise.
yes, thank you. See, I told you needed to remind me on the second one. So, the goal, and I think we talked about at the beginning of the presentation, it used to be a hub and spoke.
Yeah, right.
That was more concerning to me because if we lost one big power plant, we lost a huge section of our grid. And it's pretty easy to hit one target, right? So if, say we have a bad actor want to go after, they're going to go after the biggest target they can get for the most bang for their buck. In that case, it would have been like a 1,200 megawatt, one of the large power plants. The nice thing is having these small projects scattered throughout the state makes us much more reliable because we can then partition off the grid so we don't have a massive roll blackout that would hit the entire area. So the more solar projects throughout Wisconsin with the batteries makes our grid much, much more reliable, harder to hit them too. The grid can take one or two going offline at a moment's notice. Not an issue, but if we have a 1,200 megawatt plant go offline, that makes a huge impact. That takes an entire grid and can cause a rolling blackout then beyond our footprint then. So definitely better reliability for not only storms like we have right now, or if we have bad actors trying to go after them as well.
We have time for one more question.
What is the cost for the consumer compared to what we're paying now for electricity when, if this were to continue and, using the solar energy, using the wind?
I wish I would have grabbed the numbers off the top of my head.
Is it a cost savings for the consumer going this route?
Long run it is, yes. And the reason behind that is a big part of your bill is fuel cost.
Right.
Currently, you're paying a lot for coal, and unfortunately that coal is a direct pass-through. So whatever the price, especially this year, the last 2022, huge rise in energy costs, all attributed to fuel. Natural gas spiked, coal spiked. It really wasn't actually the product, it was the transportation of the coal spiked. All of those are a direct pass-through to the consumer. So when fuel costs fluctuate, you all get to see it in your bill, unfortunately. The great thing about renewable resources is there's no fuel costs involved. So you have a higher capital improvement to put it in, but then there's no fuel costs on the backside. So in the long run, if you're not looking at if you're looking at that 15-year time frame, we're going to be saving a lot more money going without a fuel source and making that upfront cost. The thing that's always variable is fuel. Each year it can be, we have what's called a fuel band. So we have to be within a percentage for fuel costs, what we anticipate the fuel costs are going to be for the next year. If we go over that cost, that's a direct pass-through through the PSCW. So we're hoping that we're eliminating that variability, and this brings more consistency to bills going forward then too, not having that fuel variability in the bill. Hopefully that answers your question.
All right, I'll let Barry have one.
Being on the fire department, I know where that
Yeah.
is located.
Yeah.
Can you tell the rest where the location is?
So, so that'll be on County E, so it's about, what did you say, 2 to 3 miles south of BOAZ?
About 2 miles.
2 miles. So it'll be on County E going toward Blue River then, just south of BOAZ. Yeah. So the nice thing is it has farm fields all the way around it. I think our closest residence is about a 4 mile away on that one.
Yeah.
So it's kind of its own little world right there. So
A lot of people stop and ask me, where is this? Because they come to BOAZ to find
Right.
it. And I says, no, now you gotta go out and eat.
So-
You really don't want to put signs out because that will get some bad
Yeah.
actors.
Right,
And I go,
right,
oh, that's
right.
where it's at.
Well, for that signs, we had to put them around our pond for the sewer system because we had people going fishing there, so,
do they get you there?
little turds.
So the other thing too that I failed to mention on the microgrid on E is we also made the investment that we took down all the overhead lines and we made everything underground from that all the way to the town.
I love it.
So that's increasing that reliability then too, because you can still have a bad actor or someone not paying attention, take out a pole and it wouldn't work worth a darn then. So we made sure that everything's underground into the village then. So.
Let's give these two a great hand. Dawn,
Well, we hope you've enjoyed the show, and we hope you will enjoy the end of April and the beginning of May. Of course, May Basket Day is coming. This Friday is the UW Richland Roadrunner Road Rally, and we hope you'll come back next week and every week to find out what's going on here in Richland Center.